Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services. And once again, I am joined by Mr. Ryan Finch.
Hello. It is good to be here. I think we missed last week. So, right? We missed last week? What day is it? It's
It
June
is
8th.
Wednesday, 1
Yeah.
p.m.
Wow. Hey, that's my line.
I know. Well, you kind of left that one open. So, yes. Well, look, it's been a crazy last 2 months. We've been absurdly busy. And especially the last couple of weeks in particular, with our current environment, I got to say, overall, I think we're seeing some client rust. Yeah,
Ouch.
this is a hard hitting episode.
Wow.
Some client rust on top of our already challenging environment in the events industry.
Joe, do you care to elaborate on that?
Well, I think I'd just like to say that people haven't done events in a couple of years.
Fair.
And so, it is a long time after they last did it, and they're just a little rusty. And I think they're forgetting some kind of important things, and from what we see on our side, as well as everyone who's in the events, technology, hospitality sides of the industries, there are tremendous staff shortages right now. Okay, so then couple that with also tremendous supply chain shortages. Literally, we can't buy a mixer to save our life. So anything we want to buy, we usually can't get right now. And then we don't have enough people. And this is with everybody, every hotel, every catering service, every florist, every decorator. This is with everyone. But we also have a lack of preparation time. And I think in the past, many of the service and event vendors were able to assist the client in the pre-production and some of those like connecting the dots type of services. And right now they just don't have the time and the ability to do that. And so I'm seeing that we're kind of in some situations where there's a little bit of rust and people don't know exactly what they're supposed to do and how it interacts with everyone else. So it seemed like a good time to cover some of those topics.
That makes complete sense. Now, we did kind of jump the gun here a little bit. I mean,
Well,
you took away my thunder.
I mean, not yet. I didn't. This is my prelude, Ryan.
Oh, your preamble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can't wait for the homily now.
No, I mean, we'll get to that. But I mean, you got to start someplace. We're setting the table. If you had read your script, we didn't have a script today, did we?
You caught me by surprise. I'm like, I don't think I have that.
Listen, before we get into all of our refresher points, Ryan, tell people how they can find us for more brilliant ideas.
I would love to. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube Live. You can do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m., just like it's Wednesday at 1 p.m. right now. See what we did there? While you're there, you can share, you can comment, you can like, you can subscribe. You can do all of the above. You can show us some love. Joe hit the wrong banner up. I went out of order this time just to mess you up. But of course, you can also drop us a comment, be part of the show, right? If you have a question, something that's aching, that you need an answer to, we're doing this live for a reason, folks. You can just drop a comment on whatever platform you're watching, and we're magically going to see it, and we will answer it live as long as it's not about, special gummies that you tend to eat. I can't imagine who would comment something like that, Mike Dardano. Excuse me. As you can see, also, we have a little new color scheme going on here.
I mean, this kind of color scheme?
Yeah, it's like a royal blue. I pointed out it's a little off-brand, but I don't know. I like it. I like it. So, yes, I'm sorry. The chunkable pieces. I almost skipped this part. Instagram, Facebook. You'll see some recap, little highlight pieces, assuming that there are some from this lovely conversation, which I think there are going to be.
I think there's going to be lots of fun stuff. We thought it was a different kind of day. Here we are in, what feels like mid-June, even though I don't think it's really mid-June. It's going to be a long June, and which is good. Ryan, did I also tell you that my son is graduating high school?
You told me, but you didn't tell our lovely audience here.
Well, he is. He's graduating in just a few weeks. So, we've had a lot of preparation leading up to that. There's parties, there's proms, there's tuxedos,
Very nice. Okay.
I mean, there's just fun stuff that's got to be done. That, of course, is at the exact same time as all the events. Just,
Perfect.
keep that in mind.
Why not?
But either way, let's talk some refresher points. All right, so we're going to start with something since everybody's back in person, mostly, kind of, somewhat. We're back in person. The very first thing we usually need is a floor plan. So I think we're going to start with the floor plan, why that's important, and we'll kind of use a few visuals because we are corporate audio visual.
That makes complete sense. Also, Joe, I didn't even mention this before the show started. I also have a floor plan to show that might be three-dimensional. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, boy. Well, then these drawings may not look as impressive as that. I'm just gonna bring that up. But here, let's add some things to the stream here.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to use an example, right? We got a floor plan from one of the venues we work with all the time. Great folks over there at Westchester Country Club.
Thank you.
Let's put in a little plug for them and Caroline Hay. She's excellent. And they have shown us what this thing is going to look like. We've got a bunch of tables right in there.
All right.
We got a bunch of tables. Over in this area, we see audio visual.
Well, Joe, that's a big footprint you got there. Do you really need all that space?
That is a fantastic question, Ryan. And we did not even discuss that ahead of time.
That's true.
I mean, we are really like.
I think I just have, like recurring nightmares of the same question being asked to me 17 times a day.
Well, it is a big footprint. You can see I actually added 2 tables later on because of the second half of what we're doing. We have in the room and we have streaming. So this was a true hybrid event, and we were doing both. And we'll show you what this thing shaped up to look like. But why is this floor plan important to people, Ryan?
Well, I mean, why is it important to us as service providers? I mean, it gives us the starting point for literally everything. It gives us a sense of how full the room is and how much space we have to work with. B, it gives us the orientation, right? Like if we're facing the long wall, then we're wider than deep. If we're facing the short wall, then we're deeper than wide. And that kind of changes really, the rest of the AV plan accordingly.
Very good, very good. Of course, this way the venue staff, the catering staff knows, kind of what to expect because they have to plot their path of how they're going to service the client and everything. And there's usually some other people involved too, whether it's florist or decorator or, there could be entertainment, a band or another performance. Either way, but Ryan, do you notice that I even have my own name on here? Like I'm written in the corner.
TD. Wow. That's very important.
Well, I like to sometimes, insert a little authority. That's all I'm saying.
That's technical director for those of you watching at home. TD.
All right. So
that's Joe.
Wow. I know. I just blew you away. Hardline internet. Okay. Very important when you're streaming.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We dropped that one in there. We had a few other things. Either way, let's see what this thing actually looks like when you start putting it together.
Okay.
So this is that room. And now we've got some TVs in there. We've got some speakers. We've got some lights. We have some cameras. We got the whole thing going. Looks a little better than the flat paper.
It does. It really comes. And now there's people also. I mean, that goes a long way too.
Now we got the peeps. Okay. So here are the people. Those are those 4 big TVs we were talking about, or video monitors. And that's our person speaking. Now, Ryan, do you want to see something cool?
Yes.
I didn't even show you this. That is that same person speaking.
Okay.
However, this is for our virtual audience, right? The people who are online. So you can see our branded screen right there. There was different graphics to coincide with the actual camera image. And, our friend Mike did a really nice job on the virtual side for this particular event. But all the graphics we're going to be talking about later, but that's pre-production. That's work done ahead of time. Either way, I mean, we got a couple of cool things here, right?
Absolutely.
But it all started, right? Let's see if I can get back. Oh, sorry. Let's go back here.
Open the gun.
There we go. All started back with that floor plan. So that we would know what to do, where to go, and who's going to set what up. And
Well, and
so no surprises.
that also, gets back to the timelines, right? Going in with a plan, especially with the, recurring nightmare of not having enough time to set things up, just because of the amount of volume that these spaces are seeing. And a lot of the time we're, not being given as much time as we would like. Well, in those cases, then it is even more important that we go in with a rock solid plan, and we know we can divvy up the crew and say, okay, you two guys drop the screens here, here, and here, and and these two guys will start cabling things, and and we can just really kind of divide and conquer. And if you go in and have to figure it all out, then that is not a good way to do it. And it takes 10 times as long. So another important reason to have a floor plan in the first place.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I have a second visual, Ryan, to go with.
Oh,
that.
do you? Wow.
I do. Let's add that back, right?
That's
we're gonna
blurry.
it's a little blurry, but that's all we're gonna get today. Okay. So it's a little blurry. This one is a much bigger space. And in this case, dimensions were really critical to us. There's actually a big formal stage right here. We had we had a big band on the stage. We had a big performance actually on a dance floor. And this was our first time really working in this space. Now, in this case, this was our layout from the technical side. It turns out, I found out that day that there was another drawing from the catering side. They did not exactly line up.
Aha!
Now, that could have been avoided.
Yes.
Right. But this is part of those things that we try to talk about ahead of time and get on the same page.
Now, this floor plan also appears to be a little bit more technical in nature. Is that right?
You are correct, Ryan. And let me show you why. Because this is actually a big performance space. And, this is it's a good sized space. It can hold 1,000 people. It's just a different environment. So everything becomes a little more involved. In this case, we actually had 4 cameras. There was a lot of wireless mics, big PA system, a lot of lighting. There was just a lot. So it's magnified in its scale and its size. But what does this place look like when we actually go to do it? Well, that's what the event actually looks like. So we have all those TVs that were in the pictures. We have them all over the place. The lights are on there. There's a gazillion microphones, but it's all just part of, you talk about, the video. So this is only really one person. You talk about needing space. This was just one person. The cameras continue over to the left. Then we get into lighting. Then we get into sound. So it's a lot. There's 13 different people working on the show.
Right.
They need to know what to do. I think that's the key. And Ryan, this is really the most important picture.
There we go. The selfie.
I'm just saying. I mean, the selfie, is really what this is all about. But
well, look, it's all about relationships and trust. But another point I want to make, aside from the selfie, because it was very nice. Thank you for sharing.
It was good, though, right?
It was a good selfie. No. Look at that. I lost my train. No, sorry, the floor plan. There we go. Pull the floor plan back up for me.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So a crucial part of the process of executing an event like this, we always say events are, won and lost, or they're successful or failures before it ever leaves our warehouse. And in this case, because things are spaced out, right? I mentioned that this one's a little bit more technical in nature. There's more measurements. The scale of production is a little bit higher. Well, when it comes to getting the right stuff on the truck to show up to this location, these kinds of measurements are super important, right? And that tells, our people in the warehouse, what kind of distances they're working with cabling. And, especially when it's laid out on paper during the planning stages, you can actually figure out that you may need some different pieces of equipment, or you may have to find a solution to something just based on those distances. And obviously, having it laid out like this is really the only way to be able to kind of make those choices and fill in the blanks. So, but I also figured it makes sense to point out that it's relevant not just to the people on site, but also to the warehouse and operations team and everything that goes in behind the scenes that really the clients never even see. Like, it's also important for them. We need to be all on the same page in order to come away with a successful event.
Absolutely. And just because this was set up, before the day before, and there's a lot of moving parts. If we didn't have the information from this grouping that's here on the dance floor, if we didn't have that information, they would not have been able to prep for that the day before. Right. And then when those 20 people came and wanted to run through everything, we wouldn't have been prepared.
Right.
So, I mean, it really puts everybody working in the same direction, and it's very important. But Ryan, I'm guessing you might have another type of floor plan. Let me just take this off the screen so you can.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. So this is a floor plan for an event that we did out in Austin, Texas, earlier in the spring. And obviously, on paper, this is a little less technical and a little bit more informational. Different type of event. There's a lot more moving parts, a lot more vendors, a lot more deliveries from different individuals. And it's also an unconventional space. This is a bar, restaurant, sort of music theater, which if anyone has ever been to Austin, Texas, everything is a bar, restaurant, sort of music space. So that kind of really, fit with the territory. But in any case, this being more of a public-facing event, there's just different areas. It's not all about the stage. It's about the whole event experience and how attendees will move through that experience. And, in the planning stages, it becomes really important to just start blocking out, where the most important things are going to go and working from there. So, everything from food to, sponsor activations, to, or exhibit booths, if you want to call it that, to our tech position, of course, to our stage, of course, the same types of things that Joe pointed out. But also in this case, we need to know where the power is coming from. Sure, there are some outlets, but that's not enough for everything that we needed to bring in. And so if you look down in the bottom, I think you can see my cursor. Yeah, you can see down here where
a little bigger.
No, I can't.
Not?
Sorry, stop
it's
asking.
Kind of small.
All right, how's that? A little better?
It's a little better.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Okay, we're getting there.
Thank you.
So obviously this platform that I'm looking at is a web-based system that we use specifically for things like this so that we can really kind of dial in the details. But one thing again I wanted to get back to, as far as people moving throughout the space, certainly from an AV perspective, we're mostly focused on the AV stuff, right? But when it comes to where to put the AV stuff, in some cases we need to kind of think like an event planner. Right? And we need to think about how people are going to interact with this space, especially one that's unconventional. So to do that, to help us do that, we can use a special tool that turns it into, boom, 3D.
Whoa.
I know. I was pretty excited about this myself. So I can kind of zoom around here. Everything that I put on that floor plan is also now viewable in three-dimensional space. So some of these boxes, we had some again, Austin, Texas, it got kind of hot. So a lot of things are just covered by tents just out of necessity, but also to make sure, do we have enough space to put that tent where it is? And will it still make sense as an attendee when they walk in? Oh, I zoomed in a little too far. When they walk in, am I going to be able to make my way to where we want to go? Is there enough egress space?
I feel like I'm a bird in the tree.
Well, that's funny you say that because this is bird's eye up at the top here.
Wow.
Yeah, look at you. And then, of course, we have an indoor space. We have some more activations. But again, in the early stages of planning, we had, a plot that looked like this. and we had to just start putting things in place. And without being able to kind of block out some space, and sometimes things two-dimensional, it's tough to make it translate to three-dimensional without actually being able to model it and to know, yeah, there's enough space for that, and I feel confident because look. So in any case, another a good example of the types of things that floor plans are useful for, the different tools that we use to create these floor plans. And just kind of giving you a sense of why it's important in general.
It's well done. Very well done.
Oh, thank you.
I like that. That looks
paying
so much
attention, I guess.
fancier than
It does.
the crayon drawings that I
I will say it is also worth pointing out, right, that that level of detail and production information and putting it into our floor plan, like that takes time. Right? To come away with something that detailed takes time. And so, from a budgeting standpoint, that was just part of our scope is like, hey, let's make sure that we map all of this out correctly. And I'm going to know that I'm going to spend some time. I mean, that's hours of work just putting floor plans together and making revisions and making sure everything kind of fits together. So look, napkin drawing, no problem. And for 50% of the work that we do, a napkin drawing is probably fine, right? It's enough information to get people headed in the right direction. But when the complexity goes up, level of production goes up, or just the the general scope that we have to manage, that's when you just need a little bit more work, a little more pre-production.
I agree. Well, we discussed floor plans. I think everybody's getting a sense of how important they are. Because it's kind of a starting point for us. Well, there's also another starting point really on the show production side, and that would be our run of show.
Run of show. I have an example of that as well. Do you have one?
I don't have one. I have a lot of things in my head, but I know that really would have come in handy at 2:15 when someone told me they wanted to rehearse with 20 people at 3:00. I said, does anybody actually ever run a show? Because that would have been really helpful to know. Because we would have already been done instead of racing around now like animals to try to get that done. And that's just why it's so important. I mean, you need a schedule of events, right? I think everybody who's planning events has a general sense of that, But for us, we need a run of show, which is really to tell us exactly what is going to show exactly when.
And that word you use there, exactly. It's really easy, especially coming from the previous world of events where nothing was hybrid, it was all in the room. You have a little bit more flexibility just in general, no question, right? But you add in the hybrid element, and now the level of choreography has gone up tenfold. And, again, the word exactly. It's very easy to have a rough idea in your mind of how this program is going to flow. And if all things were simpler, if the technology were not a factor, yeah, you could tell somebody, hey, run up on stage and make this quick announcement, and hey, why don't you just go ahead and transition into the next piece? Don't even worry about what was going to happen. It feels better, right? It's easy to think that I got it pretty close in my mind. We'll make it work. But on the technology side, it's just like a floor plan, right? The run of show is like the floor plan for our program. Boom, huge analogy. Put that on a banner.
Wow.
The run of show tells us everything that's going to happen in the program, and it gives us a chance to think it through ahead of time. Because what almost always happens is we point to a specific moment where we have no idea what you'd like to see or hear at that moment. And it always goes, oh, yeah. And then we get to actually make a decision on it. But without being able to map it out ahead of time, then we never get to pick those moments. We don't know those moments are coming until it's too late, basically. So definitely worth, reviewing ahead of time. So there you go. Perfect example on the in-person side. Go ahead. I feel like you have a point coming.
Well, I think because people are forgetting that after those 2 years that we just spent on the virtual side, everybody expects TV. And TV has a very specific script and run of show. And there's a lot of people working to make that happen. So if we have dead time at that podium and we're just looking at this, blank, beautifully lit background, then it's not really going to keep people online. They're just not going to keep watching it.
That's right.
And so you have to be a little more precise with it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the expectation now that even we're seeing on our side. Like we expect it to be more precise now.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Well, excuse me. It also comes with the territory of trying to cater to two audiences at the same time. It's really hard to wing it, just frankly. So
Absolutely.
Why don't I pull up that example here?
Well, we were even discussing that last week because I did not feel overly comfortable trying to manage both shows at the same time.
Right.
Because we look at it as two separate shows.
Which it absolutely is. I mean, look, it's twice the footprint in that floor plan you showed. You had to add a whole extra, 2 tables. It's because there's a whole other show that's got to take place at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so here you go. Here's an example of a run of show that was put together by our friends at Events to Remember. The run of show tells us a number of things. The play-by-play and the timing, right? What is happening from a literal standpoint, who that person is, what they're going to be talking about, so we can kind of follow along and know, approximately how long it's going to be. And then on the stream side, or should I say on the screens in the room, well, we know what's got to be on the screen and when. And one distinction I want to make is that sometimes what's on the screen in the room and what's going out to the audience are not exactly the same thing. And again, I use the word exactly. It might be slightly different. So we need guidance on that. Otherwise, it's all guesswork. And, if you guess wrong, nobody's happy. So, in any case, this is a good example of, what goes into a proper run of show. You look up at the, top columns here, and that kind of, paints a lot of the picture. But, I want to point out this blue highlighted column, right, is where we start seeing some very specific cue notes that also, this reference Mo, that also reference the AV in the room. So there's cues for the stream that rely on the AV in the room also hitting a certain cue. And so if those two things are not perfectly in lockstep, then, it all goes by the wayside. There's info on what the lower third should be. Perfect example of when things deviate, right? We had slides that were supposed to be up on screen to accompany each person speaking that had their name, had their headshot, title, and it was just nice to be able to say, like, this is who's speaking on the stage in the room. But for the online audience, we really want to be able to see the person speaking, and cutting to a side-by-side isn't an effective way to do that. So a more traditional way, just like you see in any major, any broadcast whatsoever, you'd see lower thirds come up in the lower third of the screen that'll say, Tim Leddy, VNSW President and CEO. So we have different graphic assets that need to accompany the live stream as opposed to the in-person. So again, just an easy way for things to be different. Another area I'll point to is when we go to the video rolls. Most of the video rolls played at the same time for the online audience as well as the in-room audience, but there were a couple of videos right over here that only went out to the live stream audience. So again, making sure that that things are thought out ahead of time and really mapped out so that one crew, a couple of members of the crew can follow one set of instructions while the other members of the crew can follow another set of instructions. So, just a good example of the kind of detail and information that goes into creating a successful hybrid event. You are muted, Joe. You blew it. Yes, got him.
I have a lot of other noise here. So
okay, fine.
It's very well said, very well stated. But all right, so we've covered floor plan and, of course, the infamous run of show, which is like the floor plan for the program.
Yes, it's on a banner.
That means it's got to be
real.
We
did it.
It's
got to be right.
Correct if it's on the banner. All right, so we got a couple of little parts. Let's talk a little bit about the script itself. Is there actually a written script? I think that depends on the show and depends on the type of meeting or program it is. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that some people, kind of wing it. But again, the technical team is now expecting a little more precision.
Right.
And I think kind of everybody is, to be honest, like,
Especially like perfect example is, when there's like text to give instructions, and we want to make sure that the number comes in on the broadcast when it's most relevant and most impactful. And if we don't know what that person's about to say, then it's guesswork. We're back to guesswork. And you could end up going, oh, he's done and I never brought it in, and now it doesn't happen. And that part of that is just the nature of doing things live, right? It's a little bit imprecise, but having a script and a set program does yield more specific instructions and overall a more polished broadcast.
well, I know when I'm on site that now I'm looking for that script, and we're spending more time actually running through the cues because we're trying to anticipate where those graphics or where those, like, exactly when it's coming in, and really make a nice smooth transition. And they do reference particular things. If it was a key sponsor, you kind of want that graphic to come up at the exact moment that they're going to say that.
And that's a great example of when it works, everyone's in agreement that worked, right? When it's late or early and awkward, everyone notices that it's late or early or awkward, right? And you don't necessarily know why it was that way or wasn't that way. But for us, we know exactly why. It's because we didn't see it coming. We had no way to anticipate that, or things got a little too loose and, the cue already happened, right? And so, ultimately, again, when you want to create impact and you want things to be delivered polished, professional, that's where that script comes in so that our team can literally follow along.
Listen, Ryan, would you like a pro tip?
I would love a pro tip.
Add the slide number right to the script.
Oh, there you go.
All right? Because that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Well, we're trying to get everybody to match it up exactly. We know exactly when it's coming. After they say, well, thank you to Ryan Finch, we're putting up the picture of Ryan Finch.
Right. Well, and now, speaking of content.
Are we talking content?
I think we're talking content.
Wow.
And when
that's a transition right there.
It was actually a pretty natural transition.
That was very good.
This show is just slowly becoming us being impressed with ourselves. Oh, man. There we go. The pats on the back. We're doing it. The content requires preparation. I don't think that's going to come as a surprise. But I think what a lot of people don't necessarily realize is the level of preparation that is required to avoid those awkward, early, late, otherwise types of cues. It's a lot, especially for a hybrid event, right? And the first place I would start, just to reference that run of show again, the first place I would start is file names. Joe, I mean, this was definitely a hot topic during the all virtual event.
Absolutely.
Because everything virtual was a file, everything, right? And in that case, it just kind of amplified this challenge, but it is still a challenge regardless. And that is, a lot of the time, we don't know what you're referencing. You're like, oh, it's, the sponsor stuff, the sponsor loop. And then the sponsor loop is named something different than the journal, but the journal is what you meant. So easy place for everyone to not be on the same page, file naming, right? Call Absolutely. It what it is. Name it. So here we go, in quotes. Thank you slide, VNS 2022 Gala Journal 2 final. I'm sure there was a final V1 and a final V2. Another example is, if something gets updated, look, if we got 99% of the content in order, ready to go, and you update one thing, no problem. We can do that quickly. But if you update 3 or 4 things that we weren't sure where they were going anyway, now we have twice as much content. We're not sure what the latest version is, and we don't know where it was supposed to go to begin with, and it just becomes a huge mess.
We are confused.
We're confused, and confusion leads to late,
Mistakes.
Early, awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not that transition that you want. Ryan, just to maybe highlight the content piece, and again, the script and content go hand in hand. But I think you might have another visual to show people, and it references kind of how we have to put it together. when we're on the
Yes.
streaming side.
So on the
It's
streaming
a little
side,
different than the in-person side.
right. So what I'm going to show you is more or less what the behind-the-scenes view is on one particular platform that we use often. It's called vMix. So this is like a broadcast studio that we have in a box that shows up on site. It's like a supercomputer that's connected to, our AV in the room. It's connected to the cameras. It's connected to, a series of other things that lets us produce a show. And what we're doing in that box is assembling all the different pieces, all the graphics, all the content, all the videos. Everything gets assembled. And then we're able to kind of just click through and hit our cues on the stream. And the level of preparation. I mean, just for a quick example, and this is just something we pulled off the web. You're looking at a playlist of content, right? And there's very specific details for each and every piece. This is just scratching the surface as far as how much could be in there. In many cases, there's 10 times as much, lower thirds and stingers and whatever else you can come up with. But the idea is, if it's not all preloaded and pre-programmed, then we're not able to just go cue, 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 cue. Then it's all manual and clunky, and it just doesn't work that way. But the easiest way is for us to have some time that we can spend and take the content that was in the run of show, right? There we go. Run of show. Nope. Oh, I got a graphic up. Man, I can't do it both at the same time. Blew it. Yeah, I blew it too. All right, fine. In any case, you take the content that's in the run of show, we line it up with the broadcast system, and we're able to really build things out ahead of time. In other cases, right, when we have multiple PowerPoints in the room, what you'll see is our video engineer is going through and combining slides into one PowerPoint deck, or separating some other slides into another PowerPoint deck, not in a way that would make sense to anyone other than the person literally hitting the buttons and just kind of thinking it through ahead of time. But if you don't have the time to think it through ahead of time, then you're going to look for something live, and he's like, oh!
So
and then it's awkward.
You mean like if someone didn't give you the order of the 5 different PowerPoints until 10 minutes before the event started?
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's an avoidable problem.
You are making it much more likely that you'll say, and now let's have so-and-so, and we are not ready for so-and-so. And we're not ready, and it's going to be late, and it's going to be awkward. And you'll say, well, how do we prevent that from happening next time? And we say, give us time to plan it ahead of time.
Yeah, a lot of it is time related and rehearsing and running through. And like I said, I think just everyone is very stretched in their time right now, and their balance of their lives coming out of the pandemic. So it's creating a little bit of rust, and we've certainly seen some of that. And people are excited to be together, and they're also dealing with some of the balance of some people not wanting to be together. And
right. So
it's a little challenging for all involved, and we're just trying to say, hey, here's some ways that we can make it a little bit easier for everyone. And I think that's where these are controllable items. So.
The other point is also, because we never like to be the guys who just say no to things, and we say no, you can't do that. We don't want to be limiting, but
we want to be these
guys.
That's who we want to be.
So hopefully the behind the scenes and the informational pieces are really just there to serve as a reminder that we're professionals who are thinking it through, and our world just has some different factors that we need to be able to control, and this is the way we do it. So hopefully we've done that.
Well, all right, we're going to recap, Ryan, and we're going to wrap this thing up. So we'll start with first tip. Okay, work with your team to create a floor plan. Share it amongst all of the vendors. So the venue, the florist, the audio visual production, if you have a camera recording crew, if you have a band, you have a performer, you have a comedian, whatever. Let's just make sure everybody's on the same page.
Right.
Okay. Another tip here. Let's add the slide number to the script. Oh, yeah. Let's name the files the exact same. Let's go for exact, in terms of the file, the script, the run of show, that they're literally all the same, because there are many times where we've seen 3 different names for the exact same thing. and that is not helpful.
Right.
And of course, to quote Ryan, the run of show is like the floor plan for the program.
I'm so proud of myself on that one.
You should really
I'm gonna get
be blown away.
T-shirts. I'm gonna get T-shirts.
Okay. And, I think that those are really the key things we were trying to say today.
Yes.
So, Mr. Finch, I think it's time for us to wrap this one up. We have a lot of work to do right now.
That is very true.
Oh,
well,
we do have tonight. We have, let's see, the Party in Playland or Party on the Pier, Westchester
Pier.
Magazine, Party on the Pier. It's going on tonight, 6 to 9. So be there, be square, kind of thing. It's a fun spot. Lots of cool things. Food trucks everywhere. Really good stuff. I think there's a bartender mixologist contest, which is usually pretty slick.
Very
But
nice.
but everybody go check it out. And then the Burger and Beer Bash will be at Kensico Dam on Thursday.
It's more my speed.
And the Grand Tasting, I think is what it's called, will be on Saturday at Kensico Dam from 12 to 4. Be there. All these events are great. The food is incredible. Restaurants are spectacular. Be there or don't, but you should be there. Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
That was great.
Finish up what you had.
Nice plug. Well, you can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube Live. You can do that every Wednesday at 1 p.m. While you're there, if you're watching on one of those channels, drop us a comment. Be part of the show. We'll answer your questions live. We're doing it live. You might as well take advantage of it. And hey, before you leave, like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above. Smash that subscribe button. Much appreciated. Show some love, and keep an eye out on Facebook and Facebook and Instagram for little bite-sized pieces of this show, just in case you don't have 42 minutes to sit down and listen to us jabber on about things.
This could be the best 42 minutes of your week. Let's just be clear.
Well, in fairness, it's been a tough week, so yeah, very possible. But. Okay. But yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's all we got, man.
I think that's all we got.
All right, everyone. We will see you next week. We're going to introduce you to a new member of the team, and it's very exciting. So we can't wait. Excellent. All right, everyone. Have a great week. Enjoy.
Take care.
Bango, Bob's your uncle.
Your uncle's name is Bob.
Let's do it.